NASCAR are about to make big changes to the cars for the YellaWood 500 at the Talladega Superspeedway this weekend. And these changes could certainly make some cars lose speed, or even worse, notice a change of balance. And the worst part? It should actually make things better instead of worse. This news came out as the series regulating body expects that the latest improvements will prevent dramatic flying incidents at the 2.66-mile superspeedway. NASCAR's continuous effort to keep cars on the track rather than in the air continues ahead of this weekend's Cup race at Talladega Superspeedway. Early this week, the series' sanctioning body was debating a radical alteration that would have included a shark fin-like element extending the full length of the greenhouse on the right side of the car. The suggested air deflector would have stretched down the windshield, potentially causing vision and safety concerns. These plans were dropped yesterday, as NASCAR instead announced 3 alternative alterations for this weekend's important playoff race. Added fabric to the right side of the roof flaps, which will block more air whenever the roof flaps are raised. Added a skirt to the bottom of the rocker panel toward the base of the car. Extended the right side roof rail by 2 inches with polycarbonate, albeit it will not touch the windshield. Following Corey LaJoie's surprising flip at Michigan in August, there has been a renewed campaign to restrict the potential of aerial mishaps. It was the Cup Series' first blowover collision on a non-superspeedway circuit since 2010. Before arriving at Daytona International Speedway later that month, NASCAR required a new air deflector above the back glass on the right side of the car, which matched an existing one on the left. Officials stated it would increase the velocity required to lift the cars off the ground by another 15% to 20%. Unfortunately, the original modifications weren't sufficient. Michael McDowell nearly flipped in front of the field during the race, but soon after, Josh Berry took a harrowing trip down the backstretch. After spinning to the inside of the track, the number 4 Ford Mustang quickly jumped off the ground, flipping onto its roof before crashing into the inside wall and spinning like a top while remaining on its lid. Berry was unharmed, but the crash heightened anxieties across the garage, with Talladega still ahead of schedule. Logano stated that NASCAR must find a solution to protect the cars from flying off the track. "Gotta figure out how to get the cars on the ground," Logano remarked after the race. "We're not doing too good on that part, so hopefully we can figure out how to do that better." Elton Sawyer, NASCAR's senior vice president of competition, agreed that more effort is needed to prevent cars from tipping over on superspeedways. "It's a complicated situation there when you're running the speeds that we're running, and you put multiple cars close together and how they affect each other," Sawyer said last month. "Our guys in the back, I know they've been working since Saturday night to kind of recreate all that, and still some additional work on our side to be done." It's good to see NASCAR and the regulations body taking note and introduce new regulations to make racing safer. But it leaves me wondering, won't these changes also hurt their current airflow? And perhaps create more dirty air for the cars behind, making it easier for them to get loose? What do you think? Will these changes to the car make the aerodynamics act very different to what the drivers are used to? And might these even make some cars weaker for this weekend? Next to the changes for upcoming weekend, NASCAR also released the penalties for last weekend. The weekend at Kansas produced a solid race and resulted in a few teams being punished for minor violations, NASCAR declared on Tuesday evening. According to a press statement, Shane Van Gisbergen and Brandon Jones were discovered with loose lug nuts during the Xfinity Series race. Both teams' crew chiefs received $5,000 fines as a consequence. Those were the sole penalties, since no penalties were issued in the Cup Series. Crew leader Kevin Walter will take on the $5,000 punishment imposed on Van Gisbergen. Jones's fine is incurred by crew chief Adam Wall. No penalties for the Cup Series, in other words, a quiet week for them. However, last week was totally different as the NASCAR community unanimously criticized the round of 16 finale at Bristol for being relatively routine and uninteresting. And now they have finally spoken out and revealed why the race was so boring and straightforward. Kyle Larson controlled the race from start to finish, leading 462 500th laps. Larson had the best car, and although that's undeniable, the rest of the action was judged problematic. Some have attributed the absence of tire falloff as the primary cause, as contrast to the spring race, which saw considerable tire wear. Jeff Gluck of The Athletic, commenting on the Teardown podcast after this past Sunday's race at Kansas, stated that Goodyear told him that the same tire used in the spring race was used in the playoff race 10 days earlier. For the record, even though it seems unlikely, and some people will never be convinced otherwise that it was the same tire, Goodyear feels like they have gone back and checked every level of their distribution in every way from the rubber to the make, whatever. And they feel like it was the same tire. The exact same tire, and could somebody have made a mistake? They think no, Gluck said. They have checked with their supplier for the rubber. Everything. Every level of it. They've gone back through and asked people what was going on. Larson won by 7.1 seconds, making it the third most dominating Bristol victory in history. There were just 8 lead changes during the race. Denny Hamlin won by 1 second in March, after 54 lead changes. According to Goodyear, the amount of rubber on the track, the temperature difference, and the way the track was handled all contributed to the absence of tire fall-off. Goodyear did a 6-car tire test at Bristol in July. The results were consistent with what happened in the spring race, but clearly did not transfer over to the autumn. I guess the theory is that the amount of rubber that was on the track in the different series, the slight temperature difference, and the combination of when they treated the track, when the resin was put down, when the PJ1 was put down, that affected it. That was enough to affect it. And apparently the stuff is in small enough windows that Goodyear was misled by going back. I think they had 6 cars at the July test when it was 90 degrees, and the tire did the same thing as in the spring. What they didn't account for was maybe 6 cars is not enough to rubber in the track. Do the teams all agree with that? No, I don't think so. I don't know that everybody's sold on that. Jordan Bianchi of The Athletic laid the blame completely on Goodyear. The people I talked to, I just feel like there is a disconnect, Bianchi said. There's something that happened between what we saw in the spring and what we saw last week. And how can you have 2 widely different tire wear issues? I just don't see it, and I stand by what I said. I feel like this is on Goodyear's shoulders. You haven't been able to figure out at what happened in the spring to cause that tire wear. What are your thoughts on it? Is it something Goodyear is to blame for? Enough about the past. Let's focus on this weekend, as the betting lines for the 2024 NASCAR Cup Series Championship were revised following this weekend's race at Kansas Speedway. So who is expected to become champion at the end of the year? Ross Chastain once again played spoiler in the playoffs, as he emerged winner when the checkered flag flew. In terms of the playoff field as a whole, several of the main contenders, like as Kyle Larson, struggled on the day, while William Byron and Ryan Blaney managed to finish in the top 5. Moving on to round 12, 2 unexpected circuits await, with Talladega and Charlotte Roval set for action. Before the NASCAR Cup Series resumes, check out the latest odds for who will lift the trophy at the conclusion of the season, courtesy of FanDuel Sportsbook. Chris Bell, plus 450. Kyle Larson, plus 450. Ryan Blaney, plus 600. Denny Hamlin, plus 600. Tyler Reddick, plus 600. William Byron, plus 600. Chase Elliott, plus 1,000. Joey Logano, plus 1,400. Alex Bowman, plus 2,000. Austin Cindric, plus 7,000. Chase Briscoe, plus 8,000. Daniel Suarez, plus 8,000. As you can see, despite his dismal afternoon in Kansas, Kyle Larson remains the oddsmaker's favorite. Perhaps Talladega will be more rewarding for him, but with the most unpredictable race of the playoffs on the schedule, anything is possible in Alabama on Sunday. Who are you expecting to win? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below.